The Polymega.
Yes.
Your modular retro emulation-based console that's been in development now for like 3.5 years. It's been almost, is it 3 years or 4 almost? There's been an announcement recently about, what's going on with it. And they're announcing patching for their emulated games there, screen filters. And they also released a compatibility list. Because remember, this is the main base is a CD disc-based system with compatibility for Sega Saturn, original PlayStation, Turbo and PC Engine CD, and
Neo Geo CD.
Neo Geo CD and Sega CD. So you get like your 90s CD stuff out of the way for the most part. Am I missing anything besides like Dreamcast, or PS2 towards the end there?
PS1 or PS2 was 2000.
Was it 2000? Okay, but because you get almost all your main base CD systems out of the way there.
So they show the tooling, they show the they show the finished case. They talk about how it's made of 100 different parts, et cetera, et cetera. I think what's important is the stuff that you want to hear about is like the intelligent game patching, which will automatically use patches that you have put in, save states that are made with patched games. So if you have something that's translation patched, say you're trying to do a comparison and you do you're playing through a game in Japanese and in English, when you load those save states, it'll automatically recognize which version of the game you were using.
That's pretty cool.
And go from there. I think they talk about how the light gun adds a thumbstick to it.
Great idea.
Yeah.
It's good.
And then it gives a compatibility list. The compatibility list, they say, is about 90% for each of the systems. I will take them at their word for that. The few games that I just kind of tried to spot check in the lists, they showed up. I think that the base unit of the Polymega, if it actually does what it says it's going to do, is something that might be interesting to some people. I still don't know that the
add-ons
are going to do anything. I still think that at this point we have enough clone systems that do a lot of the things that the Polymega wants to do. We have the Retrons, etc. I don't know that you're going to necessarily sell a lot of the add-ons for it. The CD thing is something, it's been talked about before. It's something that's more unique in the market. But I do think that we're getting to the point where compatibility is an important factor for people, and they've kind of hand-waved that. I think when you have a base unit that does as many CD systems as the Polymega says it's going to do, I think at that point you start worrying. I think some people start worrying less about the compatibility, and they look at the convenience of it. If it does it well, I mean, when you've got that many systems, I think people will look at it and go, okay, 90% compatibility among all these systems with a CD slot, fine. We can let some compatibility issues go. It remains to be seen how well it runs it. But I don't think that's going to carry over for the console portion of it, the cartridge portion of it. I think at that point, with Analog having their higher end stuff out and Hyperkin having their lower end stuff for prices that are a notch above what Polymega is doing it, or in the case of the Hyperkin stuff, well below. I don't know that I necessarily see Polymega succeeding beyond the base unit. Well, even then, I think that's a big question.
Well, again, they want you to buy into the ecosystem because it's a $300 price to get into the ecosystem. So they're betting that once you spend $300, you'll buy one or two of the base units because the base units are only $60 each. And with the base units, you obviously you get basically a cartridge slot to read the cartridge for your emulator, basically, and you get one controller you get with it, and then obviously you get the two plugs for your controllers, and then you get. Yeah, that's what you get for $60.
I try to look at something though, like
honestly, you're really paying for controller slots, and you're paying for a controller for $60. That's basically what you're paying for.
Well, on the Hyperkin Retron 2 HD is $70, I believe. One controller for each system, Nintendo and Super Nintendo, without the need for the base unit.
Yeah.
So I mean, I guess it's and you're doing two systems, so. Yeah, I don't know. I'm not sold.
The person that buys this will likely buy at least one or two of the add-ons. I feel at that point because I don't see a lot of people You're obviously not buying. If you really want the full compatibility, you would have got the FPGA stuff from Analog for the Super Nintendo and Genesis, and if obviously for the NES, you might have missed out because they don't make them anymore, unfortunately. God, I wish they did, because I missed out on buying the Mini. So I can see those people getting this, and they don't care about FPGA. But if you got those, if you spent what is it, $400 getting the two Analog ones, you're not going to be touching this. At least the add-ons, you're not touching.
Right.
It's the question is whether or not those people are going to get the base unit to play the CD stuff.
Well, and at that point, I feel like if you're looking at not hooking it up to the TV is nice, having it all sitting there in front of the TV is nice. I could see that convenience being nice. If it was cheaper, it's something I would look into. But at $300, yes. I can't do that. If it was $150 and it did all that, then
$200. We talked about before
sure.
about the price point on these systems. Once you get, I think, above $200, and you approach the modern systems, that's when your head kind of goes, why is it this much versus a modern system?
Or
not saying it's not worth it, or they didn't put the money and time into R&D, but it's just hard to make that jump.
Or the person who would want to use the system anyway goes, you know what, they probably know enough. They probably go, okay, well, I'm thinking emulation. I can just emulate.
Sure, because that's
what this is running on. Yeah. Yes, it's emulation.
Yeah, and obviously they could be tinkered emulators, but at the end of the day, they're emulators. So yeah, the compatibility list here, I made sure it had Star Wars chess and Sega CD, very important, Ian, that it had that.
Oh, good.
Mega CD, and it has for all territories listed, Japan and Asia. Neo Geo CD, Saturn, and then Turbo CD is asked out because that's not listed here. Is it? PS1 is listed. I thought there was more PS1 games than that. I mean, it's a big list still, but I thought there was somehow more than that.
There's over 1,000. So, I mean, I don't know if it's supposed to be 90% across all the systems they're saying. I thought it was 90% for each system. If it's 90% across all the systems, then let's see what it says here.
Because there's not 1,000 games listed here for PS1.
Yeah.
Absolutely is not. There's probably 100 on each page. Maybe a little bit more than that. Anyway, yeah. Hey, where's your Turbo CD, love? You don't have them laying around? You don't have your copy of Lords of Thunder laying around to test, in there? I'm sure it's okay, though. I mean,
why would you be sure it's okay?
Well, I mean, because the PC Engine emulators have been fine. They've
sure.
been stable forever, as far as I know. You know what I mean? They're not like, it's not like we're sad.
I'm not with these systems. I'm not taking anything as a sure thing.
I'm just saying, in terms of if we know what emulator they're probably using, there's like only two TurboGrafx simulators that I know about, and both of them, I don't think there's compatibility issues. But whatever. I'm just so surprised they left that off the list. That's all. Because it's definitely included.
So there's also a few more. This I did not see. Sorry. There's also a few more systems we're wrapping up testing on. So this report will be updated again soon with information for PS1, PAL and JP, Saturn Europe, and PC Engine CD, TG CD in the future.
Okay, they'll get there. That's why the lists are kind of small.
Yeah, I was mostly checking the Sega Saturn stuff, but just because I don't know. I think a lot remains to be seen as to how well this actually performs when you have it and it's running. A list is one thing.
Is that the hook for you, the Sega Saturn stuff? Like if you know that all worked, you're like, okay, that would be cool to play that on my HD TV.
No, because that wouldn't necessarily sell me. What would sell me is the fact that it's all together. I mean, I have a Saturn. This would be nice to replace Saturns if the emulation is very good and it gets closer to 100% as Saturns get older and less reliable. But there's nothing that's particularly going to sell me on this. I just don't think it's a system for me.
And you can buy a Saturn HDMI cable for, looks like on Amazon, they're $30.
Yep.
And I mean, at this point, there's HDMI cables for most of these consoles. And it's got good ratings, too, 4.5 stars.
Yeah.
So that's your...
Which brand one is it?
I don't Level Hike. I don't know who that is, but it's getting good reviews. So there you go. At this point, they figured out. Only a couple years less.
There's a bunch. We have the Hyperkin ones for the Saturn in the store.
I mean, honestly,
I've been meaning to take one home and test one. I haven't.
Buy steal technology from each other. It happens all the time with this stuff. There's only so many ways you can convert these signals.
Sure.
So yeah, we're figuring it out. And obviously, there's a teeny bit of lag that's input when you convert these things, but hopefully it's minimal that you don't notice if you play it on your HDMI, LED TV here. All right, well that's a positive update. You're moving in a solid direction here, and then if you get the full bundle, you save $40 if you get all 4 of the add-on packs there plus the base unit. It's what is it? What the hell? I just had it. I just had it in front of me the price. It's like $600 instead of $640
What are the add-on systems again? They're doing Nintendo,
NES, Super, Genesis, and Turbo.
Turbo.
Oh, excuse me, it's $500 down from $540. So you save 10% if you get all of it. So it's $540 plus tax, and shipping. If you get basically, what is that? 10 systems altogether, something like that, and then you get 4 controllers with that. All right. Well, here's to the Polymega here. We'll hopefully see it come out next year and can talk about it more when people are actually playing the thing, but they're still taking pre-orders there.